Hey, this is Ryan of Happy Healthy Vegan. Now, I know a lot of you guys have seen this story in the news lately. A new study has come out and said cheese is safe to eat once again. Apparently, eating cheese, according to this one new study, does not increase the risk for suffering a heart attack or a stroke. And this applies equally to full-fat cheese and milk and yogurt. So a lot of you guys are asking, how can this be so? Because you've seen all the research, the decades of science showing that cheese, cholesterol, saturated fat are all bad for our health and do cause these diseases. So the point of this video is to show you, how is this so? How can studies like this that come out and say cheese is safe and doesn't cause heart attack, how do these studies exist? What is behind them? I'm going to expose it here. Well, first of all, take note that this European study was funded by no less than 3 dairy industry organizations. Well, this reminds me of an article I read on Time earlier this year in January proclaiming how cheese is great. We should be eating more cheese according to science. It doesn't cause disease. In fact, they cite a study that says cheese doesn't cause heart attack. It does the opposite. It actually makes your heart stronger. Strangely though, this study was funded by the dairy industries. In fact, pretty much all the studies referred to in this article have their funding sources coming from dairy industries. So now people around the world are rejoicing, hearing great things about their bad habits, that it's okay to eat tons of cheese now, which is loaded with cholesterol and saturated fat, which in the past we have heard cause heart attack and stroke, but now these new studies are saying the opposite. So what is up? Is there any global scientific consensus about the health risks of having too much saturated fat?
There's a global scientific consensus to limit saturated fat intake, with most authoritative bodies recommending getting saturated fat at least under 10% of calories, with the prestigious U.S. Institute of Medicine and the European Food Safety Authority recommending to push saturated fat consumption down as low as possible. The top contributors of cholesterol-raising saturated fat: cheese, ice cream, more cheese, chicken. What are these industries to do?
Well, that's Dr. Greger of nutritionfacts.org, and he has before looked into this matter, how facing this mountain of science showing how saturated fat causes heart disease, how does the dairy industry react to this science? What are they to do? Well, check this out.
In 2008, the global dairy industry held a meeting where they decided that one of their main priorities was to neutralize the negative impact of milk fat by regulators and medical professionals. They set up a major, well-funded campaign to come up with proof that saturated fat does not cause heart disease. They assembled scientists who were sympathetic to the dairy industry, provided them funding, encouraged them to put out statements on milk fat and heart disease, and the scientific publications we've seen emerging since the Mexico meeting have done just what they set out to do.
In other words, instead of the dairy industry acknowledging the scientific facts being proven about their products, instead they're reacting by initiating a global marketing campaign intended to spread misinformation about the science.
Here's some of the materials from that meeting.
Yes, the dairy industry has made a full-color brochure describing how they're going to spread this misinformation, these alternative facts about dairy.
What does the industry think is the key barrier to increase worldwide demand for dairy? It's the negative messages and intense pressure to reduce saturated fats by governments and non-governmental organizations. In short, the negative messages are outweighing the positive. So, indeed, their number one priority is to neutralize the negative impact of milk fat among regulators and health professionals as related to heart disease.
So given that there is indeed a global scientific consensus connecting dietary cholesterol intake and saturated fat intake with heart disease, how does the dairy industry respond with these new studies showing there is no connection? Well, as I'll have Dr. Greger show you all here, the dairy industry does a really low and unethical move here by designing studies where it's pretty much impossible to make the connection.
You'll note, though, that the y-axis here is not cholesterol, but change in cholesterol. That's because everyone's set point is different. Two people eating the same diet, the same amount of saturated fat, the same number of chicken nuggets a day, can have very different cholesterol levels. One person can eat 10 chicken nuggets a day and have a LDL cholesterol of 90. Another person can eat 10 a day, could start out with a LDL of 120. It depends on your genes, but while our genetics may be different, our biology is the same, meaning the rise and drop in cholesterol is the same for everyone. So If both folks cut out the nuggets, the 90 might drop to 85, whereas the 120 would be expected to drop to 115. Right? Wherever you start, we can lower our cholesterol by eating less saturated fat, but if I just know what your saturated fat intake is, how many nuggets you eat, I can't tell you what your starting cholesterol is. All I can say with certainty is that, look, you eat less, your cholesterol will likely improve. But because of this extreme inter-individual variation, this wide variability in baseline cholesterol levels for any given saturated fat intake, if you take a cross-section of the population, you can find no statistical correlation between saturated fat intake and cholesterol levels.
In other words, even when there is known cause and effect, there's right ways and wrong ways to design studies in order to measure that cause and effect. And as Dr. Greger shows in the video, he discusses the right ways to do this and the wrong way. And guess which way the dairy industry is going with their studies?
We've known since 1979 that observational studies simply don't have the power to show the relationship. Bingo! All we need now is a friendly researcher. How about Ronald M. Krauss, funded by the National Dairy Council since 1989, also the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, as well as the Atkins Foundation? Perfect. Then you just combine together all the observational studies that don't have the power to provide significant evidence, and what do you know? No significant evidence was found.
So instead of concluding that cheese is safe somehow all of a sudden, and we should eat as much as we can, the chair of Harvard's nutrition department says these findings should just be completely disregarded. He even called for a retraction of the paper, calling for it to get similar press attention as the original story did.
It's not like they falsified or fabricated data. They didn't have to. They knew beforehand the limitations of observational studies. They knew they'd get the right result, and so they published it, right? Helping to neutralize the negative impact of milk and milk fat by regulators and medical professionals.
So this is exactly how the dairy industry is spreading their misinformation campaign, by doing science that they know beforehand cannot detect the cause and effect relationship between their products and diseases. So yeah, now people hear, oh, it's great to eat cheese. They want to hear good things about their bad habits. Well, is this campaign working for them?
And it's working, brags the dairy industry. Perceptions about saturated fat in the scientific community are changing. This is a welcome message to consumers who may be tired of hearing what they shouldn't eat.
So yeah, by that measure, the dairy industry's misinformation campaign is working. Yeah, there is the mountain of science showing that their products do cause heart disease and stroke, but the dairy industry puts out a few studies here saying the opposite, that they can detect no connection between the two. So people just say, hey, I don't know what's going on. They throw their hands up in the air and say, I'm just going to keep on keeping on. I'm not sure what to do. Well, the danger in that is that the dairy industry intentionally knows that their studies cannot detect the cause and effect relationships between their products and disease. So they're just giving you information that is unethical, information that is dangerous, information that could potentially kill you. Who are you going to believe? Science that has no funding by the dairy industry showing that there is a causal connection, or dairy industry funded science that shows there's not, but they're designing their studies in such a way that they'll never reveal that connection. So the dairy industry is doing the same tactic that the tobacco industry before it did. Doubt is their product. As long as there's some doubt in people's minds, most people will find that enough justification to keep on keeping on. But we saw what happened with the truth of tobacco, and the same thing is there with dairy. The facts, the science are there. Just will people listen or not? So anyway, let me know what you think down below. Is your mind blown that there is this global dairy marketing campaign to spread misinformation, alternative facts about their product by putting bogus, misleading science out there to confuse the public? Maybe it's not that mind-blowing, huh? It makes a lot of sense. Put nothing past them. No tactic is low enough, huh? So comment down below, what do you think about this? And hit like if you like these expose videos showing you the ugly truth behind the dairy industry. And if you're new, hit subscribe for more information from me and Angie here at Happy Healthy Vegan. So until next time, get rid of all that milk, cheese, and yogurt, and keep it carb, baby. Keep it carved.
Round and round again, spinning.